All right, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to October's TBC Power Hour. We're excited to present to you today the legal description writer for cadastral survey workflows in Trimble Business Center, TBC, version 4.00. With us today, myself, Joe Bleck, I'm the product manager for TBC based in Colorado. And we've got Jared Black. Thank you for joining us, Jared.
Thank you. Good morning.
He'll be doing most of the heavy lifting, and today also a man whose introduction could not fit on a single slide. Troy Brown is here as well, developer for TBC. Thanks for being here, Troy.
Thank you.
And without further ado, we'll get started. Just a quick note. If you've got any questions, please type them in. The way that the sessions are structured is we leave a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A. If we don't get to you, all the questions are logged and we can respond offline. That said, thank you again for joining, and let's begin.
Again, this is Jared with Rochester & Associates. I appreciate everyone's time this morning. Running through the slideshow real quick. This is going to be really heavy presentation driven, so we'll get into demo and hopefully keep it keep it as informal as possible. Just be sure if you have questions to type them into the chat. Run through the agenda. I'm going to introduce the workflow, go through a demonstration, then Joe will need to explain some next steps, TBC resources, and then we'll have full time for question and answer at the end. But there again, at any time, if you got a question, be sure and type them in.
Yeah, and depending on how the flow of the presentation goes, we'll interrupt, or I'll ask some questions intermittently, or we'll cover them at the end.
Okay, workflow introduction. The purpose of this Power Hour is to briefly highlight and demonstrate some of the cadastral tools that are available in Trimble Business Center. This particular, we're going to be running in version 4.0, which is the latest version. In doing so, we are going to create a coordinate geometry of line work from your project that you can optionally use to create parcels and compute parcel closures using the Create COGO tool. I'll briefly describe what that means. Is obviously there's a million ways to skin a cat. The workflow, the tools that are embedded now inside of Trimble Business Center allows you to actually use create new line strings. So if you're wanting to punch in courses, bearings and distances from a plat, you're able to do that. If you want to use existing drawing, CAD data that you've got that are already in your project, or you want to import some, you can just as easily, if not easier, use that information using the supplied tools. Then next, we're going to apply a description template to automatically generate a customized legal description. And we'll touch briefly on how I created the template that we use and some of the neat features that are in there to make that transition a little bit easier for you. Troy has done a really good job of listening on that end and making it very user-friendly. Then we will configure formats and phrases for the legal description template, and finally we'll draft a plan sheet containing the created legal description inside of Trimble Business Center, just to kind of give you an idea of a lot of the tools that are for drafting are kind of passed over or ignored in Trimble Business Center, but there's actually some really cool tools that are in there, and the development team would love to hear feedback on those too. If they don't hear, if it's not broke, they're not going to fix it. So then next slide.
Yeah, and that's a good kind of segue into what I wanted to say here with all of these bullet points are relatively new, and we've been developing them over the last year plus or so. So if you haven't checked back in with TBC, we are so much more than baseline processing. We're still the industry standard for baseline processing, and and survey data reduction, but we've really moved into this cadastral and drafting space, and excited to show these new tools off to you today.
Okay, so create COGO. In creating a COGO, using the tool inside of Trimble Business Center, we're going to create a coordinate geometry of line work in your project that you can use to create parcels and compute parcel closure using the Create COGO tool. So if you see on the left there, there's two ways that we're going to demo, and that is we're going to key in some information from an existing plat. This is actually, it is a plat that I've got. It has a legal description on it. Very hard to read, but and then we're going to, time allows, we'll show how easy it is to use existing CAD objects. The apply and configure template, and Joe, if I'm not wrong, or let me know if I'm wrong, but this presentation will be available after the webinar, so you can actually download this and look at it at a later time.
Yes, it'll be available with recording.
Okay. So apply and configure the formats and phrases for the legal description template. I'll create a legal, we'll look at it, and then I'll go back and show you how we actually develop some of the scripts that we're using to describe our lines and curves, so on and so forth. And it's highly customizable to your specific needs. You can actually have a template for particular projects, particular clients, particular ways that you want to describe your line curve definitions, municipalities. The sky's the limit. And then we're going to draft a plan sheet containing that created legal description. Then we'll create a DynaView, so on and so forth, just so you can, the image that you see on the right was actually 100% created in TBC with no cleanup. So this is prior to any cleanup of the drafted features. Then we'll create a Word document that's got the legal in there, and then you can actually paste that information inside of your template sheet. Okie doke. So now we'll go over to the demonstration.
Yeah, and Jared mentioned this, but I wanted to stress it again. We're demoing the software in Trimble Business Center version 4.00. That's the latest available version, available online for download. Everything you see here can be completed in the TBC Advanced Edition. There's a change made for TBC 4.00 where we have incorporated the drafting features and all functionality in the Advanced Drafting module. It used to be a standalone module you had to purchase to add on to your existing license. We've taken all of that functionality and added it into the Advanced Edition. So if you've got a valid warranty and TBC Advanced, upgrade to 4.00 and you will get all of the functionality previously available in the Advanced Drafting module, like the Create COGO, like the Legal Description Writer, like the drafting workflow that we'll show you. So let me transfer here over to Jared. There we go, we got you.
Okay, great. So you can see I've got a Trimble Business Center file on the screen. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So a little background information. This is a relatively small boundary survey, boundary and topo that we set out to perform for a client. We've done a power hour in the past on how to process feature code, so you might want to run through basically from start to finish. I can draft this and make a final product. So there again, we've got a site. It's done a least squares adjustment, have done a compass rule closure, because in the particular state that we're working in, it does require that we publish that information on our plat. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to process these feature codes directly from the field. It'll give me a nice little report. I call this a grade card for the field crews or whoever located that information. And it'll red flag certain features, like if they did not, how much did they stick to the feature codes that we have. And you can see on this one we've got unknown feature codes. There's 2 unknown feature code counts, so on and so forth. And then it'll actually tell you which point you can zoom to fix that problem. So in this case, we've got a brake line that's probably not hooked up right, and then a gravel line just based off of these points. Also, attribute information. So like if they are required to locate trees, one of the features they need to do is the size. It's telling me I don't have a size for this particular tree. So going back into my view, I can see everything's pretty much drafted. I'm going to start cleaning up my view. So I'm going to turn off my total station, turn off my traverse, I don't need it, and then finally I'm just going to, in my feature, in my filter manager, I'm just going to tell it I just want to see all my points. So you can see, I mean, it's pretty much hooked up nice and neat. Everything's on the correct layer as it should be visually, so on and so forth. Now I'm going to punch in my deed. I've got some boundary evidence found, and the way that we label our feature codes in this, there's a lot of information on here that I don't really want to see on my plat. So what I'll end up doing is just cleaning these up after I get my my parcels in there. So I need to, just like a regular survey, I need to start off on basically a point of beginning. Looking at my plat, I do have where a iron pin was found previously. So I'm going to, up in the survey tab, run over, and in this particular case, I am going to use the Create Kogo. So what this does is Trimble has kind of a proprietary type object that you can create, and it's called a Kogo collection. There again, there's you know, several ways to do this. This particular project, I am just going to create a collection, and I'm going to call this, you know, you can call it the name of the project, really whatever you want to call it, you can put it in there. The layer that I'm going to put this on, you can actually use one that's already predefined in your template, or you can easily just click on the space bar. It'll bring up the new layer. You can go ahead and easily punch that in. I'm just going to call this Kogo. I believe this one already exists, and it does not. So I'm going to assign a cyan color to it, solid, and then I'll give it a line weight of around 0.5. So when I click OK, now I want it to create lines. I do not want it to create points in this particular case, so you can toggle that on and off. Another neat feature is you can assign what point number am I going to start with, and then it will renumber or number your points in order. And then you can actually assign a point layer to these as well. Same deal, if you click in, you can bring up your layer manager if you want to and create one, or select from your template. I'm going to turn off my points. The next one, positions, have elevations. You can assign that if you like. Horizontal distances. So you've got grid and ground. This particular project, I do have a local site setting. But as I found out yesterday, that really doesn't have anything to do with this. If you're punching in information from a plat that does describe ground distances, you can easily punch in that grid scale factor, that ground scale factor, into the box here. And Troy, actually, if you wanted to touch on that a little bit better than I just did.
Yeah, you did pretty good. Basically, you're drawing maybe in grid coordinates or the distances, or your distances may be in ground. You're just telling the Create Kogo command how to interpret the distances that you're going to be keying in.
And Troy, what does that calculate button do?
The calculate button takes the current position of the KOGO collection, the mean position, and it uses that to calculate the grid and elevation factors to get the combined scale factor. So in the KOGO tab, you have a script where you're going to type in bearings and distances. It just needs to know how to interpret the distances, and this is what tells it how to interpret the distances.
Okay, very cool. So really, realistically, then it's a very easy way for us to actually work in ground coordinates. I know when I'm switching back and forth from CAD, the last thing that I want to happen is something to be double scaled. And this, as long as you know what you're punching in, this is the first time that I've known of, other than doing it manually, that I can actually scale those lines as needed. Just to give everybody a little bit, this is a relatively small site, but if you're doing a very large plan, I mean those types of that type of information is going to make a difference in your final product. So very cool. Working down the list, everything is in order. On the curved distances, I'm going to be describing mine by the arc length. And Troy, you give a little bit more feedback on this.
Right. All these settings are just to try to make it so that the script works in the same way as your plat or your drawing. So some drawings call out arc lengths, some drawings specify chord lengths, and some drawings specify angles. And so you're just trying to make it so that this matches up with your drawing. That reduces the amount of thinking and calculation so that you can type the information directly from your drawing into the KOGO script.
Very cool. Then there's a spot for Z rotation, and then they've got a toggle box here for numeric keypad mode. And the thought behind this is that you can actually keep your hand over on and just punching in small little script. If you run over to the support and help, it will list all of those commands for you. We don't really have time to run into those now.
Hey, Jared, right before you jump in, we got two questions, and since they're pertinent to this menu, I'd like to answer them now here. John asks, the Create KOGO horizontal distance scale factor uses the mean position. We typically choose to use a point as a scale position. Can that be applied for the Create KOGO routine if you had the scale factor at a specific point on a project?
Well, so if you went to the KOGO tab and you called out that point and said start point and then gave it the point ID and then came back and told it to calculate the ground scale factor, it would do so.
Okay. So in the KOGO routine, John, if you use that point that you want to use as your scale factor point as the starting point for this collection, then come back into options and hit calculate, it would pull that scale factor at that point. And then Vivek asks, you made the horizontal distance ground with a scale factor of 1. So if we left it as grid, nothing would change. You just get grid horizontal distances in the Create KOGO collection, and that is correct.
Correct. And that was my point at the end. Like I said, this site that we're doing right now, just for the sake of time, is really small. So I'm not going to really see any differences that are going to be extremely negligible. Would you all agree? I mean, this is, we're talking about a plan. So.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. All right, so I've got my form information filled out in here. I'm going to click Create. And as you can see, I've got now the ability, I can actually lock these settings down should I choose. I'm going to leave them open. And then once I run over into KOGO, so I'm going to punch these in by hand. If I were to just run in here and do a simple line string, I want everybody to realize that I can actually still, just by creating a figure of some sort using the line strings or information from other drawings, that I can actually create a legal description off of that. You don't have to go through this step. Here is optional, but this does give you a really kind of neat. I've used TerraModel in the past, and basically they had a command called segedit. So this is a lot like the tools that you would have inside of there. I just wanted to make that clear that if you're just punching in one, you don't really need to go through all of this, but the options are there, and hopefully we've got time to show you what some of the true power of this is here in a couple minutes. So basically, everything there again is in order. I'm just going to select start, and I'm going to start this at a point. I want to grab this point over here, telling me that's point number 115, and then I'm going to enter a new line. So down here, I'll click Add Line. Now, because it doesn't have anything already in the queue to tell me, okay, how are you going to describe this line, it gives me my options. So I'm going to do line by bearing, and then as it needs information, it's going to pop up. So this actual bearing, and I'm just reading it off of this plat here, it's telling me that it's north 59 degrees, 43 minutes, and 53 seconds east. So I can actually type in north 53.4353 east. And then when I tab over, you can see it actually fills out the information I need. Conversely, I can actually also, if anybody's used to using quadrants, I can tell it that I want to use one slash, so that's going to equate to north to east. 2 would be from south to east. 3 would be from south to west, and then 4 would be from north to west. I hope I said that right. So now I'm going to punch these in based on that thought process, 53, and then when I tab over, my length is 192.07. Then whenever I click enter, you can see it's actually drawn my line, and lo and behold, I'm close to hitting another property corner. So my next course, I'm just going to click line and distance on that, and I'll just punch a couple of these in once I get to a curve. This is south 29.4532 to 12.87. Go on and around. Now I do have. Now I'm up to a curve. So I'll show you how to put in a curve real quick. You just click on Add Arc. There again, it doesn't have anything in the queue for the information that it needs. So I'm just going to do arc by bearing of chord. My bearing. I'm going to use my quadrants again. So this would be 3, 46.3732. My radius is going to be, it's very hard to read, it's going to be an 80.08. And, I'm sorry, my radius is 615.26. And then my arc length is 80.08. Now, when I click enter on this, you can see it has drawn my curve to the left. Now I actually want that curve to the right. So now I can just click back up into the script, and if it's a left-hand curve, I want to do a negative radius. If it's a right-hand curve, I want to do a positive. So I'll do that. When I click enter, it actually is made my changes for me dynamically. And then so on and so forth. I'm going to pull open a different one. I've already got these somewhat punched in. So actually, I turned that one off. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to go through and manually create some new line by bearing. I can actually just click on the screen whatever I need to go to. So if I know the bearing but I don't know the distance and I want to strike the distance on my screen, you have the ability to do that. another line by bearing. I'm just going to use screen objects to define these, and then I'll just go ahead and close this out. Okay, so now I've got all this information. I can actually take this and I can copy and paste it somewhere else should I want to import this in the future. But this information will be saved. So now I've got a closed figure. I'm just going to run over to the map check. And same deal. So for on my, now I'm actually in the process. I want to create a COGO of this. This is an optional step. I don't necessarily have to do this. But under my layers, I'm just going to tell it I want to set that on a SC COGO. My maximum misclosure that I want on this, you can change that to whatever you need, whatever you need on this. You can actually tell it skip parcels with 2 or more misclosures, then use only node-to-node misclosure, and that's the preferred method. Troy, you want to touch base on that?
Yeah, so at the end of each line segment, whether it be a COGO line string or a polyline or a regular line string, there is a node. So at the end of the beginning and the end of line segments and arc segments, there's a node. So normally we like to calculate misclosure only from one of these nodes to another node because it's very explicit as to where the misclosure should be. If you uncheck this, then it allows it more freedom to calculate misclosure, for example, from the end of a line segment to the, let's say, the middle of a line segment. But it has to use some heuristics to figure out where the misclosures are supposed to be. So it makes it more robust, but it also makes it a little more guesswork involved. And so if you want to be absolutely certain about where the misclosures are, then you want to check that box. If you want to be more if you want the algorithm to be more forgiving, then you uncheck the box. But you'd better probably go back afterwards and make sure that it calculates misclosures the way you want it to.
Yeah. So if it gives you an off-the-wall figure for there, then you definitely need to go back and check your work. So the thanks, Troy. The next step in this is include external line work. I'm actually going to click the figure that I just created, and then I can create my parcel. And as you can see, it's now given me. If I highlight this, now I've got 2 different string sets. I've got 1 or 2 different objects. I've got one that's a COGO parcel. And then I've actually just got my line string that I had created before. So a couple of the things that you get with with creating a parcel is this precision and misclosure information that you see under properties, and actually the geometry too. But I believe you would get this from just a closed figure as well. So it's very cool. I like how you've got this. I can retrace this information in the future. If somebody else did this project and I open it up a couple of years from now, I can actually walk in their shoes as to what they actually did, as opposed to opening up just a simple CAD file that doesn't have any, it just has lines in it. Okay, so next box that I've got right in through here, if we did have a misclosure, it would actually flag that for us right here. But you do have a map check report. Before I do that, I'm going to label these lot lines. And I've already got a style set up for that under, got one set up for boundary. And I've already got my parcel, so I'm just going to click add. And then it's labeled all of my courses and distances. Close back out of that.
Jared,
Yep.
could you jump into the setup for the label style manager? Just
Sure.
real quick, just to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so under the CAD toolbar, you have Label Style Manager and line styles, point styles, polygon styles. So this one's just basically the boundary one I've already set. You can create a new one, name it, put it on a layer, have all the standards that you, or styles that you want for the textiles. And then when you click OK, so I'm just going to make a dummy one. I'll call it dummy. Oops. I am from Indiana, so spelling's not my forte. Click OK, and then now if I go into my label those lines, you can see my dummy one is in there. One thing that's kind of neat too is that how dynamic this is. If I go back into my label style manager and say my line styles, I already have one for boundary. I want to make changes to this, and I've already labeled a bunch of lines, but I want to change my textile to you know, something completely different. Like I don't even know what this one is, but it'll dynamically change those in my for things that I've already labeled.
And also to note, in that manager, you can import and export saved label styles. So if you wanted to use the same .label style file format across an office environment with multiple instances of TBC, for example, you can share existing label styles that way as well with the import and export feature.
Yep, and we actually use this religiously. If somebody opens up, they're not using a template, but they want to use the line styles, they can use, say, like a Department of Transportation template, but they can import those styles. Layer manager, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. So, okay, so I've labeled my lines. Now I'm going to close out of this command and go to my map check report. And I think I've already got one. So anyway, within the project view on one of the new tabs now, it is giving me my report. Set this zoom to 75 so you can see the whole sheet. Got all the header information, give you all the coordinate system, ground scale factor, all that good stuff that you need to know when you're doing it legal. Actually, QA, this is really, really key because now I can, just by looking at a report, I can see, did they do this project correctly? I've got a lot more information than I've had in the past. So good stuff. It's given me, yes, I did punch this in, scale factor of 1, my total missed closure because I basically forced the closure to 0, gives you your area. All of this information can be changed in your options if you want to show, say, you know, to the second decimal place on your perimeter, but then to the third place on your acreage, you can set that. Misclosure for 1, if we did have a misclosure, it actually gives us a northing and easting of where you can see that they closed. But then on the next page, it's got all of our line work, bearings and distances for our map check. Next page actually gives us a real neat little printout of it that does have our bearings and distances and curve information on it. You can actually take this file, click the Save button, export out to Excel, PDF, or Word. Show you what one looks like real quick. Ask me to save it. I have done the Excel. The Excel one's pretty cool. It puts everything in its own page, which is nice, or its own tab inside of the Excel document. As you can see, it's the exact same thing we were looking at before, so nothing is lost in translation. Even our image is in there too. So pretty good stuff. Now, next step that we're going to run into is how do we actually do the legal description. So within our Create Kogo tool, actually up on our survey, you do have a nice little button that says legal description. You can launch the tool from there as well. So I'm going to run into the legal description writer. It loads that tool. There again, just running down in the list in order. This is what I got to address first. What template file do I want to use? And this particular set, you do get one out of the box that says default legal description template, and give you a little this will save you some time. I just opened up that one and made some changes you'll see here in a minute. But then I do have one that we made for this particular project. I'll go ahead and run through these, and then I'll show you how we created that template. So first thing that it's asking is, where do I want to start this? So where's my point of commencement? I'm just going to click close to the line. This line that I've got in here is actually a reference to a monument that was found, and asking me to select path. So I'm just going to click on the line that's getting me to my point of beginning, and then select my parcels. Go ahead and grab my parcels. I wonder if it's doing that because I have a hidden line. Hang on one second. Okay. So I clicked my my Kogo collection, and then make sure that that point right there, use only node-to-node disclosures, was preferred. Then when I click on my show calculated path, everything highlights in red. This is the path that I'm going to go. If I wanted to create my point of beginning down here, I could just grab this one as well. For this case, I just want I want this point right here to be my point of beginning. So now
So
down.
Jared, it might be interesting to note here that you don't actually have to have a parcel. That original line work that you used to create the parcel with would have done just nicely here in the legal description writer. So, for example, if you had a CAD file where you didn't take the time to create a parcel, you would just select all of the line work going from the point of commencement to the point of beginning and all the way around the parcel, and it would work just fine.
Correct. Yeah, that's a very good point. There again, you've got several different ways that you can come to the same goal of creating a legal description. So I really like that. No workflow is being forced here. You have the ability to create your own workflows or integrate existing workflows too. So okay, so moving along, you can pick, do I want clockwise or counterclockwise? I'm going to choose clockwise and then edit preview. On my other screen I'll bring over, it brings up this dialog box where we've got edit and preview. So our legal description is actually in the preview tab. So this was written based on everything that we have set up inside of our template. Troy, you can touch on this too, but there's a really neat feature down at the bottom that says enable debugging. Whenever I click on this, it actually tells me everywhere that any of these buzzwords or this text appears in my legal description, it shows up in my preview. So if I'm reading down through here and I'm like, I really don't want this, I want to change how my bearings and distances are described. These previews are all hyperlinked, so I can just click on here and it actually takes me right to it. Another neat feature is that if you don't have to click, just hover your mouse over, it gives you a preview of exactly what am I changing,
We probably ought to mention that this legal description writer is phrase driven. So when you have one kind of a line transitioning to another kind of a line, that causes it to choose a particular phrase. For example, an arc to another arc. If the arc to arc transition is if the line to arc transition is tangential, then it chooses one phrase over another phrase. So the little picture is describing the kind of transition that is being described by the phrase.
And it gives you down here at the bottom. It'll actually tell you give you a preview without even going back into your preview box.
You've got arc to tangent line selected. So this is the phrase that will be used when you're going from an arc to a line which is tangent to the arc.
So then back in my preview, now I do have a legal description, and it has, I can actually just copy and paste this information if I wanted to at this point. But all I'm doing is I'm just making sure, okay, I'm getting ready to make a Word file of this. This is what I wanted to say. I do, however, want to label this. So I'm just going to click OK. And if I close out of this, back into my Kogo, and this is one of the neat features of actually going through the steps of creating using the Kogo tool to make a collection, is that I can name my parcel at this point. So in this particular case, I want to paste in here whatever the header would be on my legal description. So you could type in that information as part of your header here. And then under my parcel names, I want to call this, tract 1. And then whenever I actually click into the parcel, it will rename it. And this text size is actually driven by the size of the parcel at current time. So there's no way to change this as of yet, which is actually pretty neat. If you've got, say you've got 100 parcels that you brought in from CAD and you just want to create real quick a collection of those, it's actually really visually, it's very visually nice that you can see how big your tracts are based on their size. So going back into the legal description writer, now I can repick my point that I want to use. I already have my selection done. And then when I go into the edit preview, go back in there, now you can see that I have it, my header that I just typed in information, but you can actually put in your header, start of the legal description. The name is in there, and then the information that I want is in there as well. So that's how you would do it from keyed information. I've got another data set that has CAD objects in there. So if you look at my imported files, this deed information, it's basically the same info, just from a CAD drawing. Now I can go back into my survey tools, legal description. This is to describe a little bit, lead a little bit more of what Troy was describing. I can do the exact same thing, grab the point where I want to start, select my path, and then I can actually select all of this information here. Easier ways to do this, you can actually use Control A, select all of the lines at once. I actually am a creature of habit. I like to go through and see exactly what I'm grabbing in there. And then same deal. If I come back into my edit preview, you can see I've got a legal description that starts at my point of commencement up here at the top, runs down the side of the road, and then starts at my point of beginning and goes in a clockwise fashion all the way back around to the end. Okay, so now I've got that information. Actually, I need to copy that. I'm going to put this on a sheet. Just going to copy this info. Tell it OK. Now the next information down at the bottom is I can create, what do I want to output this to? I just want to make a Word document, so I'm going to click the rich text format. It's asking me where do I want to save this information. Just put it on my desktop, call it test. And then when I click apply, it brings up my legal description on the other end. If you've got more than one parcel, you can actually go through and create one Word document, and it just lays every single one of them in there. It's really, really nice, time saving. Okay. So now I want to put this information onto a sheet. I'll go over to my drafting toolbar, and I have a plan set in here from just our regular, from a DWT that I imported. And if I go to New Sheet View, you can see my information is already in there. So if I wanted to create a, Trimble actually calls it a DynaView. I've got it on a no print layer. So if I delete this out, see my information is gone. So I'm going in drafting underneath my DynaView. Just going to create a line string. I'll put this on no print layer.
And while Jared's doing this, I'll mention the concept of a DynaView is the link from your plan view space into your paper space. You need the geometry like Jared's creating now, and assign a DynaView to that closed geometry. He's just drawn a polygon. Then that will be inserted into your paper space, your sheet space.
So within the same, basically I've just drawn this around, and past Terramodel users should be pretty excited about that. Some of the terminology is exactly the same, but we'll just create a DynaView. I'm just going to name it, sheet. Put this back on the no print layer. And then the actual frame, I'll grab the object that I created. Then I'll jump over into my sheet view and tell it where do I want to place that. So really neat. It's actually given me an idea of how large that is. And then once I place it, my information is there. Under my view filter manager, I'm just going to turn off that no print layer that I've got. I think it's up at the top.
Put the DynaView onto a different layer.
Yeah, did I have it on?
You've got the so there's two objects at play here. There's the DynaView object and then the geometry.
I gotcha.
The geometry, the polygon should be on the no print layer, whereas this DynaView object should be on a visible layer.
Okay. So as you can see, now I've got some text in here. I can grab this, edit it, and paste my legal description in there. And I've just got some canned notes. Just need to edit these notes, put my seal on this, and I can print this out to a PDF. And it's pretty much. I do have a little bit of cleanup that I need to do, with my text objects, so on and so forth. But realistically, it's ready. It's ready to go. I can send this out and review it. Ultimately, send it to a client. One of the other things too on the scale, if I needed, all of these are dynamic. So on my actual sheet, if I change my scale, it will change that information accordingly. Okie doke. Last one that I wanted to show. Basically, I'm just going to bring in a basically a master plan of several lots. I just have a DWG here called master plan. So I'll use the import, or you can click and drag it in. I like using the import because I can set my scale. Tell it import. So it's going to bring up, basically it's just got some lots that I had done in AutoCAD. And I need to do I need to draft legal descriptions on all these. So Just going to run through this real quick for the time. If I go to survey, create COGO, actually name this what unit this is. I'll just call this pod T, so I can keep track of these. COGO layer. I do not want to create points. All this information looks the same. Now, whenever I go and tell it to create, I'm just going to forego punching in any information and go straight to the map check. I'll set my layer. Same deal. The maximum misclosure that I want is just factory preset at 0.328. And then all of my selected line work, I'm just going to grab everything and tell it to create my parcels. So I got this information from a land planner. They don't really care. They didn't really care for this exercise whether or not my track started and ended on the same point. So you can see I do real easy. I can see which one of these do not close. And I've got a lot of line work in here, line work over the top of line work, so on and so forth. But now that's where you can actually see, if I wanted to describe this as something, I can put my header in here, and then on my parcel name, I've already got lot numbers from the planner, so I can just punch that in, and then as I start selecting, it will change the number as I click down through here. It's kind of a neat.
It's a time saver. Click on the number in the middle, and it's easier.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Troy. That's yeah, learn something new every day. Very neat way to do it. So anyway, if I go into now, I want to create legal descriptions on these. Same deal. I'm just gonna. I don't really have a starting point, but I'll just make one up. I'll grab this. This will be my path that I want to use, and the parcels that I want to create legal descriptions on. I can just manually come in and grab these. Say these three. Want them to go clockwise. And when I click Edit Preview, I've got 3 legal descriptions in there. So now if I create a Word document of that information.
Yeah, creating the Word document is optional if you're planning on just pasting that information into a sheet view.
Right. But now I've got a little bit of cleanup that I need to do. There again, I can paste the headers that I want to use at this point, which would describe if you're, if it's in a particular section, a land lot district, what have you. This is just for lack of a better term, this is just a dumb Word document. You can put images in here, whatever you want to do. Pretty neat. The map check report also works really well using the CAD data from others.
Jared, while you got the map check up, a question came in earlier from Julia asking if the lines are tied to the points in the map check. So will the map check report list lines as a part of the report? And you can see there in the line work for the individual parcel, number 30, that Jared's got pulled up, the segment types of arc and length, or excuse me, arc and line are listed.
Right. So however I describe these lines, that's how it's going to show up in my report. So if you have, heaven forbid, a spiral or something like that, it's going to have that information in there as well. It'll describe it accordingly. I like this because it's not giving me a whole lot of information that I don't need. I've gotten plats, several plats I'll get, from like back in the 50s, 60s. It seemed like having a 20-column line table was the norm. And realistically, to define that curve today, I just need basically four bits of information. So you can customize this to where will list just that information that you need in your reports, which is pretty cool. But going back into the map check, I'll set that zoom to where you can see it all on one sheet. When I run through my pages now, I've got a nice, neat little book that I can send to, say, a client, or I can save this as a PDF, and it's got all the information that I needed for these three particular tracts of land. I really like the layout option in there too. And there again, to label those lots, real easy tool. Just grab that boundary. Already got them selected. I'll just tell it to add it. I'll change my view to, I believe this is 50 scale. Kind of immaterial at that point. Probably do more like a 30. So, okay. Another nice feature, I'll just show you this real quick. If you actually grab one of these labels, and you need to swap the label side, you just grab it, right-click, and you have the ability to swap the label sides. You can also flip the azimuth-bearing label, which is a real quick and easy way to get your information the way that you want it. You also have a CAD grip where you can slide it along the actual line. The reason that that's in there is because in my style I had told it that I want it to be along the line. I don't want to be able to move that off of my my line. You can create a leader line, pick it up and move it wherever you like, which is pretty neat. Okie doke. Well, that's pretty much what I had. If y'all have any questions.
Yeah, we've got some, and given the time constraints, if we could answer the questions right now, there's a series of them on the legal description template. If you could pull that back up.
Sure. So this is the, let me pull open the one we actually created, Koga. Okay, so legal description writer.
Yes.
All these. Okay.
All right. So where's the first one here? Serena asks, can you change the phrases that are used automatically for each call out?
Yes.
Yes. In the
it's in the edit mode, so if you click edit preview, you can see under the phrases node there's what is it, there are about 15 or 20 different phrases. And so if you choose one of them, like start line at point of commencement, this is the phrase that's used when going from the point of commencement, the first line segment or the first arc segment that you encounter when going from the point of commencement toward the point of beginning. So you can see since line direction, that's kind of a keyword. And so that line direction is like the bearing of that line. And so you can insert these keywords in the phrase. The fence and distance of, those things are editable, so you can change that any way that you want. You can put line direction second, and you can put line length first. Just by moving those keywords around. The keywords are always in those angle brackets that you see there.
So as you make customized changes or edit this, you can use the save or save as command. Bill asked, or Gino asked, can the legal writer template be shared between computers or potentially saved onto a server network location? Yes, they can. It's an XML format, and TBC can read the file path that you specify here in just the Windows Explorer interface.
The way most people do it is they take that XML file that Joe mentioned and they put it on a network share so that everybody in the team can access it. And so up there in the top of the legal description writer under template file, there's a ... browse button. And so you can use that to go find that network share, find that XML file on the network share and choose it. And then it gets added into your drop-down combo box. So then you can anyway share those template files with everybody in the team.
Yeah. So any time that we have a new municipality, somebody goes through and it literally takes 5 minutes to get it customized the way that you want it. I just ask that, hey, let's share that information. Then we go and put it on, just like Troy said, we put it on network share so that everybody can use it. We're not spending those 5 minutes amongst 20 different people recreating the exact same thing. So.
All right, a couple more, if you guys don't mind. Some good questions here. I'd like to get in front of the group. Stay a few minutes later. Bill asks, can the legal description writer handle an open alignment, such as an easement with a different bearing and endpoint?
Handle an open alignment. What does that mean?
So linear based.
Any kind of an object that can give you a horizontal polyseg or a horizontal piece of line work can be used. So line strings, polylines, alignments, those all are capable of supplying horizontal line work.
Okay. Doug asks, go ahead, Jared, sorry.
Real quick, I'm just going to, while you go on to the next question, I'll just show you, I just created kind of an open-end, ugly configuration there. If you go to the edit preview, you can see it does. It is going to throw you an error that it doesn't close, but there again, I copy and paste this out to wherever I need it. So if you have, an alignment that's going thousands of feet down along a right-of-way or something like that, you can actually still get that into your template where it describes just that single feature. It doesn't have to close.
Does the legal writer handle radial bearings, and does the legal writer handle spiral curves?
It does not handle spirals. Radial bearings, and it does handle radial bearings, yes.
Okay. Can we create a parcel inside of a parcel, a subparcel?
Yeah, you can. What you have to do is when you're doing the parcel creation process, you need to select the parcel that's inside of the other parcel so that it doesn't get confused. If you try to do it automatically, if you select all of the line work for both the inner and the outer parcel, what it will do is it will ignore the outer parcel and only find the inner one. So you'll have to kind of guide it through the process by selecting the inner parcel at one time and the outer parcel another time.
All right. And then let's do one more. There's a couple here, and any outstanding questions we'll get to offline. Can the legal description writer show the text descriptor degrees or minutes or seconds rather than the degree, minute, second symbol?
Oh yes, go back into the legal description writer, click the edit preview button. So do you see the angular value format over there on the left side? It's above phrases, angular, so yeah, right there. So you see how the degrees, minutes, and seconds are currently represented by those symbols. So you might want to get rid of the combo box there so it's not hiding that. So you see there's the keyword degrees. That represents a number that will be filled in at runtime. But then there is that little degree symbol that follows after it. So you could put your cursor over top of that degree symbol and you could spell out degrees. Just type in degrees. And the same thing is for the minute symbol and the second symbol. So you can have it formatted any way that you'd like. So the reason it was done this way is so that your project settings, your project settings may differ from the way in which you want the legal description to be developed. So you want your project working one way, but you want your legal description writer to work another way. So we basically allow you to create a custom set of project settings within the project. So that's what this is for. So you can see that you can do that for the linear, the direction format, the area format, and so forth. There's also relative directions.
And I like our folks to use our template, so this box will be checked right here just so that we do get some standardization through there. But you can actually go through, create it however you want it, and then just merge that into your template and then use your project settings for however you've got those listed.
Right.
All right, I've got two more questions here, and we'll finish them up. Can you have more than one course from the commencing point to the point of beginning, the POB point?
Oh, you mean if you have 2 point of commencements? Is that what the question is?
Thomas, if you're still on the line, if you could clarify, do you mean having more than one point of commencement or different paths? I know you can have different paths. You can specify, customize the paths, or have the software run through and generate the path for you.
Well,
I think I do understand the question, and Troy, you and I had gone over this before. It's going to, yes, you can get different, if I'm understanding the question correct, you can have different starting points. It's the software by design is just going to use the shortest path. Is that correct, Troy?
yes. So you could have, for example, in a large subdivision, you could have several point of commencements. And so if you select all of the line work leading from those different point of commencements to the parcels, then for each and every parcel, it will calculate the shortest possible path from one of those point of commencements and use the shortest path for the description of how to get from the point of commencement to the point of beginning on that parcel.
Yes, and thank you for the clarification, Thomas. He's asking if the path can be a multi-leg tie.
Yes, the path can be very complex. It basically does a pathfinding. It has a pathfinding algorithm, very much like if you used Google Maps to figure out how to get from one point, one city to another, and there's different roads that it could take. The pathfinding algorithm will explore all of the different paths and favor the shortest path, and it will reject the paths where there's too much of a gap, if there is a gap.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Tom. Thank you for the great answer there, Troy. Last question: can this workflow be run in reverse? This is interesting. Can you import a Word document parcel description and then use TBC to run closure reports and create parcels from that Word document?
It's pretty close. The legal description writer could be, well, you would have to, what I would do is I would take the legal description and I would try to convert it into a Kogo script, but you'll have to do that yourself. But it's very, very close. The Kogo script is like line by bearing and then a bearing and a distance, and the legal description will say something like since so many feet along a line with some bearing. So if you can copy the bearings and the distances out of the legal description into a Kogo script, you can create the line work from the legal description that way. But it is a manual step. It doesn't do it automatically.
Okay. Well, that was a great Q&A session. Sorry, go ahead, Jared.
I was going to say that could be good to put on the list for development, though.
Yes.
That would be quite a challenging job. It would be nice, but would be quite challenging.
All right. Well, that's at least on our radar now. Thank you for that. Jared, if you wouldn't mind, I got another maybe 3 minutes of a couple of slides here, some additional information. Can you pass the presentation back to me? Or I guess I could take it from you.
Yeah, you can take it.
All right, so this wraps up our October topic. We do these every month, the last Wednesday of the month. That puts next Power Hour, Wednesday, November 29th. We'll be talking about site calibrations and local site settings in TBC and how that interacts with our field software, Trimble Access. We've got Adam Tigris of the TBC QA/QC team to guest host along with me. So looking forward to that. Some additional resources available for you. We've worked very hard to expose these features and functionality and allow you to have some tools to look up and learn what all we've been working on here so diligently. We've got a TBC community page or a Trimble Facebook page, a little bit of social component there, but also a chance to interact directly with the management and the engineering team for TBC. We do check those pages. We answer questions there. Very popular YouTube channel, TBC Survey. I've been adding our release version 4.00 videos beginning yesterday, and those will continue to be built out. So all the new features in 4.00 will have these short videos as well as I believe it's a 24-minute marathon video of me going through everything new in version 4.00. These Power Hours are archived and saved and available for your download and view at your leisure. We've been adding the presentation along with them lately, the last several months. It's gotten a lot of positive feedback. So that's the URL there. Next steps and additional resources, visit our new website. It's geospatial.trimble.com, and you'll find us in the Office software and download TBC. If you don't have a license already, contact your local Trimble partner for a demo license, trial license. And then what I would recommend to get started is to work on TBC tutorials that are included within the TBC download and linked. We've got them actually posted now on our new Geospatial TBC website. Check out the YouTube videos or ask the question on the TBC community. And we've also been running a Tip of the Week program to highlight these little functionalities here and there, maybe things that you don't necessarily know about, no matter how long you've been working in TBC. So with that, I want to thank you again for attending. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Troy, and a special thank you as well. They don't get enough credit, but our marketing communication team, they're really the bones to all of this, both here in Westminster and abroad. Michael and Urin, thank you for supporting us so well, and we will look forward to seeing you next month. Good.